England, there, England, when the sun is shining. It's a beautiful country, lots of gorgeous green fields and woodlands and all that different sorts of various things. So lots of bird song. And you know, when you think about it, people, the amount of birds in towns and villages is astronomical compared to the amount of birds that you would get out in the hedgerows or in woods. I don't know whether you've ever noticed, but invariably you get very few birds in woods. You'll get particular birds, you'll get woodpeckers, you'll get jays, maybe you'll get some sort of corvid like crows and that sort of, magpie. You may find the odd tree creeper, but I've never seen blackbirds or thrushes or sparrows or finches or tits or anything like that in woods. They love suburbia, and they've got all of these different bushes and trees to feed on and nest in, and the gardens for the bird feeders and all that different sorts of stuff. And so you have an enormous amount of birdsong in a relatively very small place. And so it's a beautiful thing where animals are living with man. And then when you go into the woods, you will get lots of squirrels, obviously if you're near chestnuts and acorns and those sort of things. But the amount of squirrels in the villages, well, it far surpasses what you're going to get out in the natural environment. Of a morning when I'm feeding my friends, there is like 10, 12 squirrels all around my garden. And as I sit here now, I'll have a couple of them come and visit me. If Gifty sees me, she'll be here. If not, there's a couple of other squirrels. And they're always running along this back wall and jumping from these trees all around this area. So it's a beautiful thing. And so, you know me, I'm always worshipping the earth, the cosmos, nature, listening to all the birds around me. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing, and feeling the sun. And I'm always emphasising this, and the sheer joy and the health benefits to the mind, holistically, the mind and body. Can you imagine, people? I mean, lots of you, you're busy and you're doing stuff, and even if you're not busy, you wouldn't do what I'm doing now. You wouldn't find the pleasure. Maybe you just stay in your house smoking, or floating on the internet or Twitter or different sorts of stuff like that. We're all different, and so anyway, you know how I do it. Now, I'm going to be speaking today about the first major psilocybin trip that I had. And I'm going to be speaking about it in a lot of details, because it's important to captivate the details of what you see, what you think, what your mind is telling you, your whole conscious experience in the finest of details, how the ego is affected, what level of anxiety is there. And so I'm going to speak about all these fineries, because it's really important for people who may be thinking about taking a entheogen, and those that have not had too much or not too much of a higher dose. Just checking I've got record on there, yeah. Okay, so when Spirit told me that the next step of my journey is Entheogens, and we're going to start with psilocybe mushrooms, liberty caps, semilanceta. They're psilocybe semilanceta. They're tiny little thin stalked ones with a little cap about that big, little pointed cap, and they are the second most potent of these psilocybe mushrooms. And so myself and my friend set out to find these, and we looked high and low for about 6 weeks until I found some, only a quarter of a mile away from where I live. The irony of it. So we gathered all these up, dried them out, and then ground them down, and we didn't even weigh them out. I didn't have any scales at the time, and we just thought to ourselves, well, we'll just try a little bit. So we tried a little bit. I think we tried about 20 mushrooms each, and they weren't even ground up. They were just dried out, and they weren't that dry. They were kind of moist, and so they were very, very fresh. And we crushed them all up into a pellet this size, and probably no more than a gram. And we took that, and then we spoke about our experiences, and we was out in a woodland area with lakes and things like that, and the sun was shining. It was an autumn day, October, and lots of silver birch. And after about an hour, when the shrooms kicked in, I had a very different experience to my friend. And this friend was Mr. Nobody, Paul, for those of you, the long-term viewers. And as usual, he went into the wacky, fighting with his dead parents and his dead brother in all sorts of kind of like Luke Skywalker ways, you know, where he's got, you know, beaming, whatever they're called, and he's putting it through the heart of his brother. Unresolved issues, people. Unresolved issues. And he said his parents were like two glowing balls. When he closed his eyes, they were glowing balls, and they were scowling at him. And his elder brother, who never got along with him, and you know, he just kind of like, he died of cancer or something, and he just like wanted to be done with it all, and so he pierced his heart with this Luke Skywalker thing. Meanwhile, I was hugging trees and like, you know, just amazed at all the details. And then I'm looking at some moss on a tree stump, and the moss is all moving like this, and it looks like a little forest. Anyway, at some stage, Paul comes up to me, and I said, look at this, and so he got down to look at that. And after he says, I knew I'd find you somewhere examining the minutiae. And I'm like, well, yeah, and I knew that you'd be in your head fighting demons. And so this is what we have to bear in mind, people. We are going to get an accentuation of how we are as core essence. So Paul, he would never read philosophy or history or anything like that. He'd always read sci-fi books. Philip K. Dick and Arthur C. Clarke and all that different sorts of stuff. That's where his mind was, out there in the imaginative. Whereas he paid very little attention to the natural world. And so if you think how you are, you're going to get an accentuation of that. And if you've got deep unresolved childhood and family issues, then you're going to have to address that. And it's not like you're probably going to be fighting like Luke Skywalker with Darth Vader. No, you'll do it in your own way. And the psilocybin, it will speak to you. The unconscious will be speaking to you about all the things that you need to get a resolve on, and all the bad shit you've done in your life, and all the people that you've hurt, and all that. Isn't that just classic? As I try to find a little bit of peace and quiet on the planet, then there's a freaking leaf blower or a strimmer. Hopefully it doesn't get too near. So, yeah, we're going to get this accentuated thing. And if you've never looked at your shit from your childhood, then it's going to be quite shocking to you. You're going to have like 100 Freudian psychoanalytical sessions in several hours. That's how intense it's going to be if you take a decent amount. But if you have looked at your core through many years, like I had done. I mean, I hadn't taken psilocybin until I was about 45, something like that, and I've been looking at my own psychology for many years. And so I've got a resolve pretty well on everything, and there's nothing that's going to catch me out. There's nothing that I haven't really inspected and analysed and gone through 1,000 times, you know. But, you know, it's all such courses, people, so just stuff to bear in mind. And so that was the first little session. I look at all the bark, I look at the flowers, I look at the moss, I look at the leaves, I look at the colours, I absorb the natural world, and I listen to the birds and everything, and that's my bag, man. That's where I am. That's why I'm always doing DMT open-eyed. Everything I'm doing open-eyed. I'm never lying in bed with a blindfold on. What the fuck? No, I'm out in the world. I'm out in the world, people. So, we then decided that, I think we had a couple of, you know, smaller trips like that, and thought, okay, well that was like, give us a taste, and so we need to try some more now. And so I thought, well, okay, I'm going to go for a big one. I've got the idea what it's like, you know, I just want to see, I just want to enter into the whole thing, you know. So I think I took about 3 grams or something like that, and they were super fresh. And it was a major trip. It was a 10-hour trip, the longest trip I've ever had. And so Paul and I, we went to this park near where I lived. And it was a nice park. It had a little duck pond and nice shorn grass and some big established trees and everything, in a little bit of a wooded area, and it was a November day, and we started about 9 a.m. and it was foggy on the park and foggy in this little bit of a wood, and it added to this kind of like mysterious nature of things. And of course, November, you've got no life there, you've got dead woods seemingly, and the only birds that were apparent were blackbirds and pigeons in this wood. And so we took, and Paul took about 1 gram. He needs far less than I do. And so I was in this wood, and I'm like, wow, everything, I've got into the dream, right? And everything's kind of like slow motion, and just, it's very difficult to describe, but it's like literally like a dream when you become lucid. If you've ever become lucid in a dream, then it's kind of like, you know, you're in a dream and you're in the dream world, but you're conscious of being there. That's what it's like on psilocybin on a decent dose. And so we're in this wood, and I'm mesmerised at this blackbird, which is tossing leaves around and, you know, scratching around for stuff. And then I saw a pigeon fly through, and I saw every single frame of the wings coming up and down like this. It was like, at the time I thought this world is an animation, because I saw every frame. And it's a very peculiar thing when your mind slows it down, and you know, the bird's flapping like this and it's pretty fast and it goes through there, but no, I saw this, that, this, that, this, that, oh, so many. And I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. We're in a simulation. And then the spider's webs caught my eye, and on that particular day it was a clear blue sky, and so it was misty, but the sun was penetrating in a few places, and I watched the light run up and down this spider's silk, and it was like electricity, and there was lots of webs I could see. I just honed in on them, and there was spiders' webs all over the place, and the light was catching them and flickering and running up and down, and it's kind of like the whole thing was electric. And I'm just like mesmerised. I'm looking at it like that, thinking, wow, this is fucking awesome. And then Paul comes over to me, and he starts going, fucking bastard over there, it's fucking cutting over fucking square. And I'm like, oh my God, that energy. What he was saying was there was some guy with a wheelbarrow collecting up pieces of wood and just sawing them into smaller bits to put in his wheelbarrow. It was dead wood, you know, for his fire or something. And Paul had an issue with that. And he was like, oh, fucking bastard, he's cutting up fucking wood. And I'm like, fucking hell. I'd never heard Paul speak like that before. You know, he wasn't a vindictive, nasty person. When I'm going on my rants about thalidomides and all the other sorts of things, he's like, man, you know, live and let live, bro, that sort of thing. But then this demon came forward, and it struck me to the core, and I thought, I can't spend another millisecond with this guy. And so I just casually turned away as if I was attracted by something else, and then something else, and further I just kept walking and walking, and I think he probably got the impression, and after he said to me, he said, did you think at the time that you never wanted to do, you know, Entheogens with me again? And I went, it was fucking heavy. That was fucking heavy. And so I needed to get away from that because a bad trip was coming down. I wonder how windy it is here. Let me turn the camera like this. So, yeah, I walked away, and I walked out of this little dank wood into the grassy area like this. And then the psilocybin was kicking in strong, and the whole of this like playing field was like grouping up into hexagrams, and then fading away, hexagrams, fading away, hexagrams, fading away, everything as far as I could see, like some sort of magic carpet. And I was like, wow, what the fuck? And then there was a tree standing there, and this tree was a cedar of Lebanon. And they're a huge fir tree, and they have these big cones on them which never actually open up until they fall, and then they open up slightly. It's not like they open up like regular cones and then they drop their leaves. No, these cedar of Lebanon, they're like Christmas baubles, and this particular one was called a blue Aztec, or a blue something like that. Forget the name, but the whole green tree had a hint of blue, which was blue silver, and then these cones were glistening. It looked like a Christmas tree, and the sun was beaming down on it, and everything was shining and glistening, and the grass was going hexagrams, fading away, hexagrams. And I'm like, wow, this is psilocybin, man, this is psilocybin. And I'm like, well, okay, let me just keep walking, let me see what happens. And so I walked out to the park, and I walked into the streets, and I'm watching the cars go up and down in the road, and it's kind of like the Psychedelics cars. You can't really hear them, you just see them, and it's all dreamy like, and it was so dreamy that I never had the confidence actually to cross the road. Even if I could see the cars coming, I couldn't judge how fast they were coming or how fast I would walk, and so I thought I'd play safe, and I just stayed on that particular side. And so I just walked on that side of the road for about a mile or a mile and a half, and then turned around and came back. And as I was doing this, I was observing the cars slowly pass by, and I was looking at the occupants, and they're all just like emotionless, and I'm like, these are all Tommy Tom, these don't have any souls. And then I saw a fat girl pushing a baby in a pushchair, and she was dead. And then I saw the postman walking by in a face like this, looking, and I'm like, he was dead. And then I saw a couple of teenage girls, and chatting to each other as they were walking down the street, and I'm like, they feel human. They're not all dead and drained and hollow. No, so there are some humans with souls, but most of them they're not souls. They're automatons. Seriously, people. And I've noticed this many times on psilocybin. It will show you in an instance at 100 yards who's an automaton and who's the real human being. And so then I got to know that there were very many varying sorts of entities here on Earth. And so, having walked, a substantial amount, after about 2 hours gone by, then I saw a van parked in the driveway, and the van had like one of these Halloween masks on the headrest. And first and foremost, I thought, what the fuck? There's a fucking demon in that. And then I saw, oh, it's a mask on the back of the... Well, that kind of like gave me the fucking... what the fuck? And so then I thought, well, I'm pretty weary now, pretty tired, because psilocybin makes you tired, and initially for the first hour or something it will I'm gonna get out of this noise, people. It will make you go cold. It will give you the shivers. And so for the first hour you're cold, you got the shivers, you feel tired. It's always the case with these fucking nightmares of bullshit that we have to contend with. And it's not even in suburbia. You can go out, way out into the woods, and then you'll see some fucker there with a chainsaw or fucking something. Or then there'll be a microlight flying in the fucking sky, and really difficult. Anyway, I can get a bit of sun just around here. Tiny little patch here. Is there any more around here? Yeah. Okay. I think just here will be fine. Now there's one over there. Can you hear that? And then there's some come with a hammer over there. Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh, for fuck's sake. Let me have a go up here. You know, this is one of the things when we awaken. We become sensitive to all the bullshit, and we just want natural sounds. We just want peace. Man. Well, can't do it. Here. Okay. No. No. It's broke my mood, man. It's twisting my melon. It's fucking with my mojo. Fucking with my mojo, man. So I'm surrounded. One over there, one over there, one over there. Let me see if I get right down here in this corner. Oh, sounds better here. Sounds better here, people. Birds, I can hear the birds. Oh, that's better, man. Now, Can you keep the noise down? Crow. Alright, you're alright. Okay. So then I was walking around getting really, really tired, so I thought, well, I'll sit down on this wall. And as I sat down on the wall, I looked down at the paving stones, and then I could see male faces about life size in the paving stones. And all the paving stones had faces in them. And they weren't looking at me, they weren't demonic, they weren't going, you know, you're on drugs, we're going to get you. No, they were just like that. You know, expressionless, and that's what you'll find on DMT. Nothing looks at you. You'll see faces and creatures everywhere, nothing looks directly at you, and that's really, really curious. I've got no idea why that is, because if everything did look at you, it'd fucking freak you out. I'm telling you, if everywhere you look there were faces looking at you, you know, all different sorts of crazy faces. So these faces were in the paving stones. And then I remembered at the time that I was watching Joe Rogan and Duncan Trussell, and Duncan Trussell was talking about when he was on something like this, mushrooms or DMT. He was saying that he saw these faces in the floor. Let's say in a marble floor, you know, you need something with a bit of texture to give your brain something to work with, you know. It's like if you're going to see entities in the sky, you see them made out of cloud. On a clear blue sky, you don't see any entities, so your mind can't build anything. So therefore, you have to know that you are projecting. It's a projection, because otherwise things would be there naturally. You'd see all different sorts of creatures lurching across the sky on a clear blue sky, but you don't. You just see clouds. But the curious thing about it is, on DMT, you see absolutely lifelike humans and all different sorts of creatures. Down to the beard and the hair, every single curvature, they are real beings. And it's kind of like, how does your mind create that? You know, if someone said to me, right, I want you to draw a picture, then, you know, I'd be very limited, but they are perfect human beings when you see them made out of clouds. So I saw these faces, and Duncan Trussell says, you know, it's kind of like flat world. Do you think that there's actually a dimension where these beings are actually living in flat world? And it's a curious question, because when you take all these entheogens and you see creatures in the trees and in the stones and everything, you think, well, I mean, no reason why there shouldn't be more conscious entities. When you look around at all the life forms, why wouldn't there be, you know, different life forms in different things, in stones and in trees and all the rest of it? So they weren't moving, they were just static. And so I thought, wow, that was very, very interesting. And so after about 15 minutes staring at all those, mesmerised, I got up and I walked a little bit further. And then there was a bit of like a communal ground with some huge trees in, like this one I'm standing next to now. Big cedar trees, and the trees starting to say, welcome, how are you today? And I'm like, what? Talking trees? No way. And I stood there, and they were saying, well, are you going to come and see us? I'm like, I guess so. So I goes in, and I'm around them, and I can see them like breathing and moving. And when I looked at the bark closer, the bark is all, it's going like scales. It's like dinosaur skin as it breathes. It's like, wow. And so the trees didn't want me to leave, and I felt very comfortable there. Comfortable enough to lie down and try to go sleep a little bit, because I was really tired at this moment in time. But then I thought, I can't sleep. It's in November, I've got a big coat on. It's fucking, you know, cold. It's a clear sky, but it's cold. And people walking their dogs through that area, if they saw me, they're going to call the law. So I'm like, oh, I've got to keep moving, got to keep moving. And so then I just kept moving. And then I went back to the park to see if I could find Paul. And I thought, well, think I'm pretty well out of the I don't think it's going to get any more intense. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how intense it was going to get. But after a while, the intensity wore off and everything's weird, but I've adjusted to it. And I thought, okay, I could go back to see Paul now. And, you know, you can sort of, you know, hold a bit of a conversation. You're not up for too much of a conversation when you're in it. And I think by this time, it's only about, you know, 5 hours in. And this trip lasted for 10 hours. And so I went back to the park, and he wasn't there. But in the middle of the park was like one of these bandstands that we get in, you know, British parks, concrete bandstand. And, you know, it had a few steps going up to the floor, and it's kind of like, you know, round or hexagon shape, and it's got columns, and it's got a dome roof like that. And in the centre of that, there was a guy, and initially I couldn't quite see. I didn't know whether it was Paul, so I went closer and closer. And as I got closer, this guy, he turned round, and I saw it wasn't Paul. And he said he come to the wall, the veranda of the fucking bandstand, and he said, "Have you heard? They never went to the moon." And I'm like, wow, dude, you're so fucking backdated. I knew that fucking 10 years ago. And all his teeth were rotten, and they were all like gravestones. And he had piercings in here and here and here, and he was really scruffy and unkempt with shaggy hair. And I thought, he's a demon. His whole energy was a demon. And he had one of these demon dogs. It was a Staffordshire Terrier, a black one, and it was on a fucking chain, and the chain was about 30 feet long, and the dog was like all around like this, you know, aggressive, pulling on the chain and that. And he's like in the centre of this bandstand, and he's got a sheet, like a template, and he's spraying something like that. I don't know what the fuck he's spraying. And I just thought, wow, you are a demon. I'm going to get the fuck away from you. I felt it really, really strong. And that's the thing, you see, you become an empath. You can feel whether people are human, whether they're hollow, or whether they're demons, right? So I started to walk away, and after about 100 yards I could feel his energy diminishing a little bit. 150 yards, diminishing a little bit more. It took like about 500 yards before I never felt his energy anymore. So then I came to another part of the park where there's a bench, and there's the lake there. So I started to watch the water birds. Oh my goodness, when you start to watch wildlife and the water birds are dipping in and they're washing like this, and you see it all in frames, and you're looking at them, and you're in this dream, and it's kind of like everything's a cartoon, and the sun's shining down, and it's flickering through this tree, and it's catching my eyes like that. And I close my eyes, just to squint like this, and as I did that, I see like a kaleidoscope of colour and images behind my eyes. And so then I went, wow, what the fuck? And it was absolutely crystal clear, amazing colours and just different sort of shapes and patterns, like you're turning the kaleidoscope, and it's all like that. So I thought, okay, I'm just gonna fucking lie down on this bench. I lied down on that bench, and I was there for about an hour, and all this stuff was going on, really, really clear. And it really took me aback, because I'm an aphantasiac, and that means that I can't see anything during everyday consciousness. When I close my eyes and think of anything, there's never anything there. I can see hypnagogia, you know, when you fall asleep you get these visions, when you're waking up you get those visions. I can have technicolor dreams, I can have supernatural experiences, you know, where I can see all this stuff really, really clear, but I can't see anything. If you say think about, you know, a car, then I can't picture nothing, not at all. But on psilocybin I saw a billion colours and shapes and everything, and so I was just mesmerised by that. And I kept opening my eyes and looking up through the flickering of the sun, and I'm like, wow, all the colours were just flashing around and beaming down, all the colours of the rainbow. And I'm like, wow, these mushrooms, they really are something. They just put you into this world, man, this connection, and it's remarkable. And of course, if you are in a wooded area, then you're going to get a whole lot more than you are if you're just walking down the street, because Whereas houses and cars, they don't change at all. They don't even breathe or move or shift or anything like that. They're just static and dead. But it's all the natural stuff that moves and got faces and weird shit. And when I say natural, it's like stone in trees. You see faces and images in stone and trees, but I've never seen them in bricks and cars and things like that, you know. So then after that, I got up after that and thought, oh man, how long is this gonna last? I've had enough now. I'm exhausted. I'm absolutely exhausted. When I close my eyes, I've got this phantasmagoria going on. When I open my eyes, I've got all different sorts of shit going on. Really, okay, I know a bit of what it's like now. I'm done. And you know, let's say this was 6 hours. Well, I've got another 4 hours to go. So then I thought, well, I'll keep looking around this park to see if I can see Paul. And then when I was standing out in the open expanse of the grass, I was looking at the dank, misty woods, and I'm like, I don't want to go in those woods. It looks creepy, you know. It's like in some sort of a fucking horror movie. The mist hanging in the dead, you know, autumn, winter. Well, it still was autumn because it's November, but it looked like winter. And then I envisioned an image of a small boy, about 8 years old, standing just under the shadows and in the mist. And I got the impression straight away that this was Paul's 8-year-old spirit. And this kid who was like this, he was looking at me really angry and demonic, and I'm like, wow, dude. It never scared me. I just felt sorry for it, because Paul told me a story, right? He had this near-death experience where he was pulled under the swimming pool. You know, they're out swimming with a few lads, and some older boys pulled him down when he's, you know, trying to swim, pulled him down with his legs and held him under for long enough for him to have a life review. So his whole life passed before him, so he nearly drowned. He was on the point of drowning. And so then he's been terrified of water. Didn't even like rain after that. I don't think he would ever go in a bath. You know, his shower, that's about as much water as he could stand. But every time it started to rain when we were out, we've got to get out of the rain. He was spitting a little bit. And he wouldn't take a hat or an umbrella. He just wouldn't be out in it. He'd got to go away from it. And so it really left a profound impression upon him. And then one day he came upon his mother in the toilet, drowning the baby kittens. She had a hand holding the kittens under the water down in the toilet, and he was horrified from that and called her all the cunts under the sun, and then ran out and never spoke to her for about 2 weeks. So yeah, water wasn't something he was going to have a relationship with. So I saw this image and I felt the anger, and I'm like, I knew instantly that that's this little boy. Because what happens, what I said to Paul at a later stage was, I said, look, this is how I feel about that. When you, as an 8-year-old boy, almost died, I think that your current soul left your body because it thought it was in imminent death. It was going to die. Because the life review was there, and so he was on the precipice of dying, and so this soul, it exited the body because it thought it was going to die, and then you never died, and then you came back, and then it's kind of like this soul was trapped then in purgatory, and that's why it's so angry, because it's in purgatory, it's in no man's land. It can't go beyond wherever you go when you die and reincarnate, and it can't come back into your body because I don't know, maybe the portal's closed or there's another soul entered. And so Paul agreed with that. He said that's a very good, you know, explanation or analogy of how he felt, because he was never the same again from when he had his life review. He came out of that swimming pool, he was a different person, and he said that he felt like he was dead. And so it felt like he's dead all these years, and there was no life in him, there's no zest for life. He just wanted to go back, but he didn't want to kill himself because he wasn't brave enough to do that. So he was just plodding on. He was just like taking every single day. And you know, Johnny No Mate's a loner, lives on his own, you know, even he finished his relationship with me because he just needed to be alone. And so I don't even know if he's alive, you know. I don't know what his state of mind is, but you know, he would often get very depressed and have, you know, crazy thoughts. So yes, I mean, you know, that particular trip, it gave me so many insights. I knew that I could look at humans and see whether they were actually human or not. And okay, so they would pass the test of being human, flesh and blood, but having a soul or spirit. Now, difficult to know whether it was the lack of the spirit, but I think, you know, all life forms have souls. So you have to have a soul because it's the electricity which animates the body. So they all had souls because they were all living and doing that, but they never had spirit. They were vacuous, they were empty, and so not everybody has spirits, people. And this is why I'm always saying to you, are you dead or you are Tommy Tom? And I swear at least 90% of you are. You don't have spirit, and that's why you're not enlightened. You're not awoken. You don't see the world like, you know, I do, and really real spirited people do. You're dull. You're in the matrix. You just got this ego. You will never you'll never get spirit come on board because it's not within you. It's not within you. And so, disappointing as that might appear to be, but how many of you are, you're so far away from grasping any of these things I say when I'm speaking about this spiritual world. You're so far away. And so I'm convinced that there's spirited beings here and then there's non-spirited beings here. And so then I learnt also that I could intuit or feel demons, good people, spirited people and demons without a shadow of a doubt. Fucking this demon was powerful, man. You know, rotten teeth and all fucking tattoos and dirty and fucking, you know, overly involved in the conspiracy. You know, they never went to the moon. And it's kind of like, wow, fuck. Gotta get away from you, dude, with your devil dog and everything like that. And then seeing flat world, seeing what appeared to be living things, inanimate living things, and then closing your eyes and just seeing a kaleidoscopic, just like, it's just information. You can't work out what anything is. Brilliant, bright colours and shapes of all descriptions, and then you open your eyes and you see the world going like this and you're in this dream, and then when birds fly by you see every wing flap, and wow. I never found Paul, and eventually I thought, well, I'm gonna walk home. I'm exhausted, I just need to go to sleep, man. But I was afraid of going back to my apartment and being contained because my mind was still tripping. And I find it easier when I'm tripping just to keep walking, just to keep changing the environment, because if you just sit still, then you get the same old, and your mind will start playing even more games on you because it's looking for information, it's looking for things, you know. And so I think the best bet to keep moving. So anyway, I went back to my apartment, and my apartment at the time was number 9. You know, a very powerful, important number for me. Pure consciousness, and I was. It was the 9th room in 9 rooms in a bedsit joint, whereby, you know, everyone has a room but you share the kitchen. And so I just come back from Bulgaria. I was waiting for my property to sell. It was in the depression. I had no money, so a mate of mine who owned this joint said, yeah, go, and this room's empty in this joint, you know, take your pick. And he owed me £3,500 at the time, you see, so it was payback. So when I went into the room, and there's just a bed and a desk there, I was like really pretty fucking restless, and then the mind's going over and still all the shit's there. So when you close your eyes, you got all this shit, and then when you open your eyes and things are like this, and I thought, okay, just gotta go sleep, just gotta go sleep, close your eyes, sleep. Eventually I went to sleep. And then the next day, Paul and I were speaking about our different trips, and Paul was telling me why he was saying this about this guy cutting the wood, because he just felt something so powerful that he was cutting the trees. And I'm like, yeah, well, the trees, the branches were already dead, but he didn't think they were dead, and they're not dead, you know, everything's alive. So this demon was cutting, you know, like bodies up, and he had a real issue with that. And then he said, after he couldn't find me, he went home, but he never said any more really about it, the details. He just said that, yeah, everything was just fucking wacky, and, you know, he didn't enjoy it. But the difference being, you see, he couldn't explain anything else about his trip, but I've explained all this. And I wrote about all of this in my book, in the finer detail. And I have a very, very good memory which can recall all this stuff. And it's a real phenomenon, really, because, you know, how long ago was that? It was like, goodness me, 12 years ago or something like that. And I just remember it like that. I can feel it, you see. So let me talk about the consciousness. Well, the first thing that's going to happen is the ego is going to have an issue, because the ego becomes afraid, because the ego feels very, very compromised. Something else is happening, and the ego is kind of like, hey, this is not right, no, this is not right, this is scary, and it will put up a fight. But if you let the ego take over, then it will send you on a bad trip, because the ego isn't going to want anything to do with what's going on. So you've really got to take mastery over that. You've got to go, step aside, ego, this has got nothing to do with you, just calm the fuck out. I'm on a trip, and, you know, I'm going to let the mushrooms do whatever the mushrooms do, and you got to be comfortable and content within that. And you're going to go, well, you know, I don't know how long it's going to last, 10, 12 hours, whatever, but, you know, I wanted to see what it's like. I'm here now. Okay, let's just deal with this. So you've got that facet of it. You've got to have some sort of level of mastery with the ego. And then you feel a connection with the world, with the cosmos, with spirit. Everything is you, and everything is speaking to you and offering you stuff. And it's not all pretty, people. It's not all pretty. You know, like I say, coming upon this demon. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt that, you know, demons are real. You know, what they've been saying about demons forever. No, they're real. As far as consciousness goes, they're in consciousness. You're conscious, and so they're in there. And we all have choice in our lives whether we want to mix with these negative energies or not. Me, since you know, my familiarity with psilocybin, I can sense bad apples very, very quickly. As soon as I'm in the presence of them, I'll feel their energy, I'll feel their negative demonic spirit. I can feel an environment. If I go somewhere, I'm very empathic about the environment. If I go into a room, a house or something, I'm so empathic. I can feel the energy present, I can feel the energy before, and all this. And so there's been many arrows to my quiver, which I now have since I've been partaking in all these entheogens. And so it's made me very much an empath, very, very conscious of energies, good and bad, negative and evil, and all this. And, you know, the devil and Jesus and all that, they're archetypes, people. They're nothing in and of themselves. The devil was never anything in the Bible. You know, the devil wasn't even the serpent until, you know, in the New Testament, where Jesus conjoined them together. You know, the serpent was just a serpent in the Old Testament. And he was the one that said, hey, you know, if you eat that fruit, you won't die. God's lying to you. And so where's the wrong in that? And then later it became the devil, and then through writers like the Italian writer Dante, and then with another Milton with his Paradise Lost and everything. They start to describe the devil, you know, as a red beast with horns and teeth and a cock and pussy and tits and tail and hoof and, you know, and all this stuff. That's never was in the Bible in any shape or form. That's man's invention. So you can see then from what we've done is that we do experience negative energies, and sometimes they're really, really powerful. And so what do? You're just going to create a being with all the things that you find abhorrent and scary and paradoxical, like tits, cock and pussy, you know, in one being, and a tail and a hoof and feet, and a head like a goat, and oh goodness me, you know, where does it end? And bright red skin, and yeah, all that. And then, through time, we know what human beings are like. We know that, you know, some have got good attributes. So if you take this good attribute from that one, this good attribute from this one, you take the good attributes from 1,000 human beings, and then you mould them all into one, and we call it Jesus. You know, come on, people, that's all it is. That is all that's going on here. I'm telling you now, with every vessel, with every atom, with every shred of consciousness that I've got, and 63 years on this planet, I'm telling you, that's what it is. They're all egregores, born out of human consciousness, born out of consciousness. Everything's born out of consciousness. There are no beings as such, like Satan in the center of the earth. Oh, really? Jesus floating up around there? Yeah? Oh, I don't think so. No, I'll tell you where they are. They're in here. They're in here, people. And I've had Satan come in here 2 times, really, really powerful. Just came about. When you get low, when you get down, when something happens with the body, you know, these things will come calling. And you got to be strong. You got to be really, really strong, because they will. The mind will tell you that if you want to escape this, take your life. Take your life. It's the only way you're going to escape it. But then you got to fight. You got to do the Jesus and the devil thing, you know, on Mount Zion, where the devil takes Jesus up to the top of the mountain, and he offers him the world, the kingdom, if he'd only bow down to him. Well, this happened to me. This happened twice to me. Well, I'm doing this, and it went on for a long time. On one occasion, it went on for 6 weeks, very powerfully, really, really powerful initially, but then fading away, and I took mastery over it by banishing the darkness with the light, not believing in that entity per se, just knowing that it's the yin and the yang, and if your mind is weak and susceptible, it will be enveloped and gobbled up into that negative energy. Then you will do something stupid, like many people do. They take their lives. You know, they throw themselves off buildings and all different sorts of shit. It's real, what's going on. But I was too strong. I was a conscious spirit. God consciousness was me, like Jesus. Jesus, the archetype of Jesus could never have been compromised by being offered anything. It didn't matter what hell he was going through. No, he would always know that he is the most powerful. I knew that. I knew that I was the most powerful. But it still took a long, long time, and again I write about this in my book. The situation I was in. Yeah, I was in prison at the time, people. I was in prison in Arizona, and you've got a lot of fucking devils in those places, a lot of devils. And then, you know, you shacked up with, you know, one of them in your cell, and they change all the time. Then another demon comes in, and it's kind of like the cosmos was showing me, because, you know, I had, goodness me, a lot of, let's say like 20 cellmates before I was moved into an open dorm, whereby you've got 200 people in bunks, just in beds like this, and so you can get away pretty well. You know, you're not confined for 24 hours a day with a fucking devil, right, who's coming down from fucking crack or some fucking thing. And I'm telling you, people, you get compromised. Yes, and so Satan, for all intents and purposes, showed me a lot of stuff. He gave me this terrifying feeling within my body that was just, it was there for 24 hours a day, and I just kept meditating like 5 hours a day, and then reading Buddhism and all different sorts of stuff to take control of my mind. Joe Dispenza, you know, just taking your mind back, having the power over the body and all this different sorts of stuff. Now, how did I manage to fend off the demon himself? Well, because I was very experienced, you know, with lots of things and, you know, negative energies in my life with what I've had. And so coming through all that now into the beautiful basking cosmic God consciousness, I feel very, very enriched, very powerful, seen a lot, travelled a lot, people. And so who knows how what you're gonna experience. You're gonna experience what your spirit, if you've got one, shows you, what your soul is going to show you, what your ego is going to show you. You're going to be challenged, you know, with negative energies, and you're going to be shown some positive energies. So what I can say in relation to this is start small, and then go up incrementally. And the more you go up, the less the anxiety will be there. You're always going to have some level of anxiety. You always will. It's a natural thing. But you overcome that level of anxiety. I've never had a trip whereby I haven't had just a little bit of anxiety. And even taking DMT, when I've, you know, sucked on that pipe like 200 times, it's kind of like, here we go. Here we go. It's like you get to the top of a roller coaster. And if you're anything like me, you hate that feeling of falling down. It's like, there's a dread. There's a slight dread. But the dread with DMT is only before you take it and not during. So as soon as it enters your body, the dread's gone and you feel beautiful. So that is a very, very, the DMT is a very good starting place, because you'll only get 5 minutes in and then you'll come out and you'll be going, wow, 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 wow. It'll change your life. It'll change your fucking life. And you'll be shocked. And you'll talk about it for fucking months after, because you'll see things you've never ever seen before. You enter into a different world. But the psilocybin is much more subtle and it's longer. You know, what I do these days when I'm taking psilocybin, I set my mind. I tell my mind that I want a 2-hour session. I want to go in fast and out slow. So it's like this sort of shape, like that. I want to go up fast, up within the hour. You will, on psilocybin, you'll go up on an empty stomach. You take your psilocybin, you go up. And then you're in the duration for about 2 hours, and then it tapers off. And so what I do is, when I've seen the main theme, when I've got the message, I go, okay, I'm done here now. I tell my mind, I'm done here now. I don't need to carry this on for the next 5 hours. And so my mind takes mastery over this substance. Can you believe it, people? I've got a very strong mind. And so I tell the mushrooms, my mind, the unconscious, what I want to experience. I go, look, I'm open for the message. Whatever the message is, whatever the unconscious wants to tell me, okay, tell me, but I want in fast and then out slow. Nice and tempered, because when you have had the intensity of it, whatever the message is, that's about 2 hours, and then you really enjoy it, because everything looks beautiful and things are still moving and breathing, and you know you're over the heaviest part of it. And so then, you know, particularly if you're out in the sunshine, you're enjoying that, walking around. You still don't want to mix with people because you feel their energies and this, that and the other. You just want to sit down and contemplate what you saw and how you feel and marvel at the world and all that. So anyway, well, I mean, if this was of any use to you, then, you know, it was. Maybe for some of you who have taken these entheogens and know what I'm speaking about, how far-flung from any of your experiences was it? How close was it? What level of mastery do you feel you're at now? How have you been compromised by the deepest, darkest of negative energies? Demons, for all intents and purposes, people. Have you been blessed by, you know, the highest of the high? You know, I say, and I wrote about it in my book, I encountered Satan twice, and I encountered Jesus once, and I encountered Yahweh once. So, the Father, the Son, angels, I encountered angels once as well. So I've had angels giving me messages, I've had Yahweh giving me the messages, I've had Jesus giving the messages, and I've had Satan giving the messages. And so, what more do you want? What more do you want, people? The Jesus, it was when I came out of a meditation. The Yahweh, for 3.5 hours, it was on psilocybin, about 4 grams, and he was chastising me because of my transgressions against love. Then Jesus showed me unconditional love, like I say, when I was in a meditation. The angels came to me in a supernatural, spiritual thing when I was asleep. The clearest of clear, the most beautiful feeling of emancipation and connectedness and oneness, all in the book, people, all in the book. A Journey to the Self, Closer to God. It's a fantastic book. It's just got just an enormous amount of stuff in it. Not only my stuff, you know, the greats. I've got excerpts from the greats in there. And so one day I'll have a couple of people come to speak to me about the magnitude of that book. But of course, people of very high spiritual development will be getting it. People who are not very high spiritual development, they won't. They'll just read the words and then just listen to a few stories and they'll go, oh yeah, well, the devil came to the awakened one and he compromised him. And you don't know. You don't know what's going on. You don't know how horrific that was. Absolutely terrifyingly horrific. And when you're trapped and contained in somewhere like that for who knows how fucking long. And what murderous fucking lunatics you're going to be fucking shacked up with. My God. Anyway, I'm going to sit here and have a meditation now. And see if any of my friends want to come. Beautiful. And if that freaking strimmer would piss off, then I would be in heaven.